presentation by Lalithadithya ji. Srinivas garu, do we have Lalithadithya ready? After Lalithadithya ji's presentation, I'll be, if time permits, be talking about a Bhagavad Gita retelling during the freedom struggle by uh, a freedom fighter poet, Telugu poet, who wrote Bhagavad Gita with the name of Vijayashri. It's a short, modern style poem, but in classical metrical poetry. It's a classical metrical poetry piece. While we wait for Lalithadithya, I'll give an introduction to that presentation. If time permits, I will expand on what I am now saying about that work in greater detail. Otherwise, let us just have a look at how this Vijayashri is composed. Basically, the surprising thing about this Vijayashri is that it is composed by a poet who was fascinated by Mahatma Gandhi's ahimsa principle, non-violence principle. And what happened during that time, probably all over Indian literature during freedom struggle, was that this Mahatma Gandhi's non-violence was being compared to Buddha's non-violence, and people were presenting Buddha as an epitome of non-violence, and there was a lot of Buddha literature that was emerging at that time. In Telugu literature itself, there was a huge amount of, huge number of books that were emerging on Buddha's biography. And there were three different stands of presentation of Buddha. One was that he was anti-Hindu, was one presentation. This presentation was being done by Marxists, basically. Most of the people who were presenting Buddha as anti-Hindu were Marxist presenters. And there was, within that, there was one strand which was presenting Buddha as anti-Brahmin also, anti-Vedic, so anti-Brahmin also. Marxist presentation of Buddha is really very ironical because Marxism is a philosophy which goes against asceticism, and Buddhism is nothing but asceticism, and presenting an asceticist philosophy like Buddhism in the language of an anti-asceticist philosophy like Marxism was completely ironical and funny. But another kind of presentation of Buddha during those times, those modern times, when Buddha was being dug up by the recovery of many manuscripts of Buddhist literature, a lot of Buddha revival was happening, was as an epitome of non-violence. And this author that I am talking about, uh, his name is, see, his actual name is Janjala Papaya Shastri. But he used to use a pen name called Karunashri. If you look at that pen name itself, you would be able to see how he is actually tending towards compassion, karuna, and with that pen name, as Karunashri, he used to project Buddha in a very positive light as an epitome of ahimsa, as an epitome of non-violence. Or, in other words, we can put it this way: all these Gandhian followers, Gandhian freedom fighters those days, were projecting Buddha as the Gandhi of the ancient times. So they were looking, whenever they presented Buddha, they presented him as the Gandhi of our ancient history. So indirectly, they were giving the message of Gandhian ahimsa, Gandhian non-violence to the other freedom fighters and their colleagues and others through presenting Gandhi. This Jantyala Papaya Shastri also, through his pen name Karunashri and throughout his general literature, also was presenting that ahimsa, non-violence, and karuna through his literature. But in the beginning, he did not compose the whole biography of Karunashri. It took a long time for him to come up with the actual biography of Buddha. That is given the name, that Kavya itself is called Karunashri. It's a modern time Kavya written in a classical metrical style. He called that Kavya itself as Karunashri, but the content is Buddha's biography presenting him as the uh, non-violence ahimsa message giver. That was the whole uh, content and message of the book. But here, this Bhagavad Gita that he composes with the name of Vijayashri, it was composed well before he composed Buddha's biography. It was getting composed at the heat of the freedom struggle. And in this book, he doesn't go with ahimsa at all. There is a Gandhian commentary written by Gandhi himself for Bhagavad Gita. For Bhagavad Gita, Gandhi wrote a comment. And people expect that Gandhi would write an ahimsa commentary for Bhagavad Gita. Actually, generally, there is the tendency of ahimsa commentary to Bhagavad Gita by Mahatma Gandhi himself. But in this particular Bhagavad Gita, Vijayashri, that Karunashri composes, he very clearly says that himsa uh, that is committed for the sake of dharma is not himsa at all. You have to go for himsa uh, as if this poet was supporting the aggressive, militant-based leaders like Netaji and others. So I'll give you the details, actual examples of how he says these things once we complete the talk by Shatavadhani, Vidwan, uh, Lalithadithya Garu. Lalithadithya ji is, can you switch on Lalithadithya Garu?
Namaste.
Namaste. Lalithadithya Garu is a very, very young but very high level Shastra scholar, Sanskrit scholar. He is a Shatavadhani in both the Telugu and Sanskrit. Um, in fact, he is younger than my younger son. He's so young, but he has achieved so much in this young age. He completed his BS in aerospace engineering from United States. He is a child born and brought up in United States. That is the amazing part. And he has got Sanskrit BA with honors with a thesis on Kautilya's Arthashastra from the University of Texas at Austin. He is a Shishya of Shringeri Jagadguru and studied Tarkashastra from Darshanalamkara Brahmashri Vishwanatha Gopalakrishna Shastri Garu. He has also studied other Shastras from Pandits such as Sri Vempati Kutumba Shastri Garu, Sri Chirravuri Padmanabha Sharma Garu. Currently pursuing further Shastric studies is Shringeri Peetham. He has performed Shatavadhanas in Telugu and Sanskrit in India, as well as Ashtavadhanas in both languages in India, the US, and Canada, and has received titles such as Shatavadhana Shatadhatri, Shatadhriti, and Shatavadhana Sharatchandra. He has given numerous pravachanas on Ramayana, Bhagavata, Bhagavad Gita, Shankara Digvijaya, etc., and has written Shatakas glorifying Lakshmi Narasimha and Kavyas in Sanskrit and Telugu. Uh, Very excited to have you among us, Lalithadithya Garu. He is now going to talk about Kavitraya Bharatam. This is a Telugu Mahabharata written in classical Telugu metrical poetry during 11th, 12th, and 13th centuries by three different poets in Telugu. They are called Kavitrayam, triad of poets. And Lalithadithya Garu's topic is the adherence of Kavitrayam to Vyasa's Mahabharata. Over to you, Lalithadithya Garu.
श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। श्रीवाणी गिरिजाश्चिराय दधतो वक्षोमुखाङ्गेषु ये लोकानां स्थितिमावहन्त्यविहतां स्त्रीपुंसयोगोद्भवां ते वेदत्रयमूर्तयस्त्रिपुरुषाः सम्पूजिता वः सुरैर्भूयासुः पुरुषोत्तमाम्बुजभवः श्रीकन्धराः श्रेयसे। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। Offering my pranamas to my gurus, the Jagat Gurus of the Sringeri Sharada Peetha, and my namaskaras to the scholars present. As Dr. Pathuri rightly said, my topic for today is the Kavitraya, the Mahabharata of the Kavitraya in Telugu, and how it adheres to Vyasa Maharshi's Mahabharata. As we know, the Mahabharata is noted as such Mahatvat Bharavatvacha, as it is both vast and heavy. So usually we say Mahat and Bhara usually should refer to the same thing. Anything that is big is usually heavy. But here, the Bhara refers to the depth in subject. So the text is not only vast in its size, that is to say, in the number of verses and also prose portions that it contains, but the content of the subject matter too is indeed very very dense and heavy. So therefore, this text by Vyasa Maharshi is rightly termed the Mahabharata, and as such, it has been termed as the Panchama Veda, akin to the fifth Veda, following the four Rig, Sama, Yajus, and Atharvana. Rig, Yajus, Sama, and Atharvana. So, because the Mahabharata has such an exalted state in Sanatana Dharma and in the Hindu tradition, it is no surprise that that regional pockets all across India have all sought to bring the Mahabharata into their own mother tongues, into their regional languages. And not the earliest, but one of the earliest attempts that we see of this is, in fact, in the Telugu language. So, in the 11th century, the Adi Kavi of Andhra Sahitya, of Telugu literature, known as Nannayya or Nannayariya, when he is referred to with reverence, uh, commenced this Mahabharata. He wrote, it is said, until midway through the Aranya Parva. There is one Padya Sharadaratrulujjala Rasattara Taraka Hara Panktulan Charutaram Mulayye Vikasannava Kairava Ganna Bandhurodara Samira Saurabhamatalchi Sudhamshu Vikiryamana Karpura Paraga Pandurchi Puramulay Paripuritam Gan. So this is one Padya. This is the Padya that they say wherein Nannaya's portion of the Aranya Parva ended. So the Adi Parva, Sabha Parva, and the Aranya Parva, half of the Aranya Parva, were composed by Nannaya. Then later on, the next poet to take this, Nannaya belonged to, of course, the Rajamahendri of the Godavari region in Andhra. Then the second poet of this triad of the Kavitraya is Tikkana Somayaji. He is termed Somayaji not merely as a family name, but he actually did perform a Somayaga, keeping in mind that the Mahabharata is akin to a Veda, in that he may be pure enough and that in that he may uh, feel himself worthy of writing such an illustrious text. He performed a Somayaga and thereupon set himself to uh, filling up what Nannayariya did not write. So, however, Tikkana Somayaji did not um, he did not start from the middle of the Aranya Parva where Nannaya had left off, but he in fact started from the beginning of the Virata Parva. So it so happened that by the time that Tikkana finished writing his 15 Parvas from Virata Parva up to the Swargarohana Parva, that the Andhra Mahabharata was complete but for half of the Aranya Parva. It was there then that the later Kavi of around the 14th century, Errana, 13th, 14th century, came about Errana, who Erra Pragada, who is also known as Prabandha Parameshwara. He came about and he very neatly formed a bridge between the portions of these two poets. So he started off the remaining Aranya Parva in the style of Nannayya and concluded the Aranya Parva in the style of Tikkana. So these three poets in order, Nannayarya, Tikkana Somayaji, and Erra Pragada. The word Pragada means a mantri. His name was Errana, so we call him Erra Pragada. So these three poets form the Kavitraya of Andhra Sahitya. And even when Telugu literature is discussed, all prayogas, that is to say, all grammatical forms that have been used of words by these three poets are said to be pramana. That is to say, when um, devising a vyakarana, when the Telugu language, Nannayya himself has given the Telugu Vyakarana penned in Sanskrita. But even later on, when you see Appakaviya or when discussing the final points of Telugu Chandas and prose and prosody, we see that the prayogas of the Kavitraya, whether it come to Yati, Prasa, etc., are considered as Pramanika. So these Kavitraya, these three poets, these three illustrious poets, occupy a very lofty place of respect in the annals of Telugu literature. So there is also one more change that they have made while translating the Sanskrita Mahabharata into Telugu. It must be kept in mind that the Kavitraya Mahabharata, or as we shall just refer to it, the Andhra Mahabharata, is not exactly an Anuvada. An Anuvada would be, that is to say, it is not a direct translation. It is referred to in literary circles as Anusrijana, that is to say, transcreation. It is not a translation wherein each line of Vyasa Maharshi or each thought of Vyasa Maharshi should be taken up and reproduced verbatim. However, it is Anustrijana, wherein what Vyasa Maharshi has told has been taken to heart and reproduced in an original way. That is not to say that there are no places wherein translations have been done. There are portions wherein the sentiments expressed by Vyasa Maharshi are indeed found reproduced near verbatim. But overall, the style of the kavya of this Andhra Mahabharata is that of an independent text that very, very closely follows the heart of Vyasa Maharshi. So we owe, to be very honest, we owe all of this to Nannayya because he recognized, as Anandavardhana says, Anandavardhana calls the Vyasa Mahabharata while discussing the literary merits of various texts in Sanskrit. Anandavardhana, as a philosopher, says that the Mahabharata is a Shastra Rupa Kavya Chayanvayi. That is to say, the Mahabharata is a Shastra that has hints of a Kavya because Vyasa Maharshi, being a Rishi, first and foremost, is mainly interested in propounding Dharma. So here we have to slightly just take into mind the difference between a Shastra and a Kavya. A Shastra is that which is meant to do one of two things, Shasana or Shamsana. It is meant to lay out vidhis and nishedhas, that is to say what to do and what not to do, or it is meant to extol something or to present to us things that are supposed to be known. That is the general point of a shastra. To summarize it up, a shastra is intended to help the reader obtain information and follow anything related to dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So, in fact, given that the Mahabharata is an itihasa, the lakshana for an itihasa is given as dharma, artha, kama, mokshanam पूर्वगाथा समायुक्तम इतिहासम प्रचक्षते. So wherever the dharmartha kama mokshas are talked about, taking upon an itivritta, that is to say, a sequence of happening of events, taking that as the base, wherever dharmartha and moksha, dharmartha kama and moksha are discussed, that is an itihasa, and itihasa therefore falls under the category of a shastra, wherein the nature of dharma, artha, kama and moksha are discussed and presented to the reader such that he can take it to heart and follow it. Akavya is slightly different, wherein the definition is given as Vakyam Rasatmakam Kavyam. Akavya is mainly intended to evoke sentiment in the reader. The reader is meant to feel, the reader is meant to connect with the characters that he's reading about. He is not only meant to obtain an academic understanding of the subject material presented, but he is also intended to have a more experiential connection with the happenings and the sentiment of what he's reading. So it can be said that if the Mahabharata Vyasa Maharshi is a Shastra Rupa Kavya Chayanve, that is to say, a Shastra where in many places does indeed have the qualities of a Kavya as well. It is most apt to say that the Andhra Mahabharata is a Kavya Rupa Shastra Chayanve, wherein it is primarily a Kavya, that is to say, intended to present a very rasa-oriented telling of the story, but indeed in the middle does also have Shastra Chaya, wherein it does also take to heart the teachings of Vyasa Maharshi and present it very faithfully across. Furthermore, we owe a great deal to Nannayya, who had the utmost respect for Veda Vyasa Maharshi, and he recognized the weight of bringing in the Mahabharata into Telugu. So Nannayya is regarded as the Adi Kavi, the first poet who created an epic in the Telugu language. There were, of course, poems written in shasanas and inscriptions and such earlier, but the first kavya, the first poetic work in mass that was brought out was the Andhra Mahabharata of Nannayya. So Nannayya not only had to bring in the Mahabharata from Sanskrit into a regional language, but he also had to set the trend, or he had to pave a path for what would become a very lush, rich, vivacious expanse of literature to come that would follow him. Nannayya had to pave the way for that. So Nannayya had to balance both of these in the sense that he had to stay true to the heart of Vyasa Maharshi while also giving this kavya an undeniably Telugu stamp. And it is indeed very fair to say that he did indeed accomplish what he set out to do. So Tikkana himself says, so as Tikkana commences his part of the Virata Parva, his portion of the Mahabharata in Virata Parva, he pays tribute to Nannaya saying, ఆదరణీయ సార వేదార్థగతి స్ఫురణంబు గలిగి అష్టాదశ పర్వ నిర్వహణ సంభృతమై పిలుపొందియుండ అందాది తొడంగి మూడు కృతులు ఆంధ్ర కవిత్వ విశారదుండు విద్యాదయితుండు నర్చ మహితాత్ముడు నన్నయ్య భట్టు దక్షతన్. This is how he pays tribute to Nannaya. So, first of all, he says that what the style of Nannaya is that which is Adaraniya Sara Vividartha Gati Spuranambu. The style of Nannaya is it evokes the Spurana. It evokes in the mind the Vividhartha Gati, information about various things that are Adaraniya Sara, which are to be most taken to heart. That is to say, Nannaya did not simply retell exactly, that is to say, he did not simply reproduce exactly what Vyasa Maharshi had told, but he instead looked for the dhvani or the hridaya of what Vyasa Maharshi intended to tell, identified identified the particular places wherein Vyasa Maharshi wanted to convey something very particular and ensured that his kavya laid focus on those parts wherever there was adaraniya sara, where there is material that was succulent and worthy to be taken to heart. And Ashtadasha Parva Nirvahana Sambritamai Pinupundi Unda. Just as in the earlier portions of the Mahabharata, Vyasa Maharshi lays out his blueprint for the 18 parvas split into 108 Upa Parvas. In the same way, Nannayya also in the beginning of his Adi Parva, laid out the plan that he had set for himself for these 18 Parvas. And it is once again worth noting that although he only wrote 2.5 Parvas, the two Kavis that followed him, that is the Errana and Tikkana, who filled up the other 15.5 Parvas, followed and stuck faithfully. They faithfully followed the layout that including the number of verses, etc., that Nannaya had set out for them, which is why Tikkana says Ashtadasha Parva Nirvahana Samhritamai. The portion that Nannaya wrote was, although it may only have been Adi Todangi Moodu Krutulu, although from the beginning it was only 3 Parvas, including the Aranya Parva, the Adi Sabha Aranya Parvas, although Nannaya only wrote Adi Todangi, starting from the beginning Moodu Krutulu, only 3 Parvas. It is still, however, Ashtadasha Parva Nirvahana Sambritamu. It is still, the portion that he wrote is still accompanied by the plan of how to accomplish Nirvahana, of how to go about writing these 18 Parvas. So, and there too, he is Andhra Kavitva Visharadundu. The word Andhra refers to the Telugu language that is Sanskritized. So, the Accha Telugu, as we say, the pure Telugu, bereft of Sanskrit, is referred to as Telugu, and of course Samskrita is always Samskrita. But Telugu that has so nicely and neatly mixed with Samskrita in its literary tradition, and thereby has become even more paripushta, even more what do you say, well formed, and even more varied and vast. Such Telugu is referred to as Andhra. So we see that Nannayya is quite adept at using Telugu, Samskrita, and the Andhra mode of language as is necessary. It is the mark of a poet to use language. The language that the poet uses should reflect the object being discussed. So when, for example, there is something that is being discussed with Ojogoda, that is to say, of the heroic sentiment, it follows then that you should indeed have a smattering of Sanskrit words, such as Adatapakshamartaya Pravikampita Ghornitachala Vratudu, describing Garuda, when in the Garudopakhyanam, Suparnopakhyanam, when Nannayya describes how Garuda was born, he says, Adatapakshamartaya Pravikampita Ghornitachala Vratudu, by the buffeting winds of his unfurled the winds by the buffeting winds of his unfurled wings. Mountains themselves were plucked asunder and rolled about. So when describing such the valor of Garuda, which was such, it is only meet and proper that such Sanskrit was used. So that is why Nannayya was referred to as Andhra Kavitva Visharadundu. And thereafter also Vidyadayitundu, Onarche Mahitatmudu, Nannayabhattu Dakshatan. He is also Vidyadayita, that is to say, adept in many branches of learning. So Nannaya, in fact, in many places, he follows Vyasa near almost verbatim. Of course, he also does tell what his goal is. So after paying homage to Vyasa Maharshi, saying, నీతి తత్వజ్ఞుల నీతి శాస్త్రం అని ధర్మ తత్వజ్ఞుల ధర్మశాస్త్రం అని ఐతిహాసికులు ఇతిహాసమనియు కవి వృషభులు మహాకావ్యమనియు బహుళ పౌరాణికులు బహుపురాణ సముచ్చయం అని మహి కొనియాడుచుండ. Those he describes how Vyasa Maharshi wrote Mahabharata. Those who are interested in dharma will treat Mahabharata as a dharma shastra. Those who are kavis will treat Mahabharata as a mahakavya. Those niti vichakshanal, the sakala niti samuchayamani, those who are well versed in niti, that is to say in politics, will view this as a treatise on polity. In this way, those who are well versed in the Puranas will view this as a nice conglomeration of many Puranic branches of learning. In this way, Vividha Veda Tattva Vedi, Veda Vyasudo, the Veda Vyasa Maharshi, who indeed was not conversant, but adept in all the finer points of the Vedas. Adi Muni Parasharatmurundu Vishnu Sannibhundu. This illustrious Maharshi, Vishwajaninamaya Paragachunda Chese Bharatambu. He created this Mahabharata in a way that was Vishwajanina, in a way that was beneficial to every single person on this earth. Vishwajanina, Vishwajanaha, of all people, to all people, such that this Bharata would be beneficial. In such a manner, Vyasa Maharshi has written this Mahabharata. So, having recognized that the point of Mahabharata is to be as encyclopedic as possible, and that Vyasa Maharshi had written it as such, Nannayya then goes on to describe how he is going to format his Mahabharata, and he then says, Saramatin Kavindrulu Prasanna Katha Kalitartha Yukti Lonarasi Melunan Itaru Lakshanaramyata Nadarimpa నానారుచిరార్థ సూక్తి నిధి నన్నయ భట్టు తెనుంగునన్ మహాభారత సంహిత రచన బంధురుడయ్యే జగద్ధితంబుగన్. So the Nannaya Bhattu, this myself, Nannaya, have become Mahabharata Samhita Rachana Bandhura. I have become happily I have happily undertaken the task of writing this Mahabharata into Andhra. And he is then telling us what he will pay particular attention to in his retelling. Saramatin Kavindrulu Prasanna Katha Kalitartha Yukti Lonarasi Melunan. Kavindrulu, that is to say, the foremost of poets, will say Melu. They will appreciate certain qualities, one of which will be Prasanna Katha Kalitartha Yukti, the style of storytelling. It is no secret that that although the Mahabharata is indeed the work of Vyasa Maharshi and it is indeed illustrious, that there are many places in the Mahabharata wherein the storytelling is not very clear. There are some places where what has happened is not very clear. There are some places in which many things are repeated. There are some places where repetition seems to the story when repeated seems to differ from the story when it had originally been told. So in the Vyasa Mahabharata, simply due to the vast expanse of the text, there are many places where the story has been rendered slightly tough to decipher. So Nannayya says that my Mahabharata will be Prasanna Katha Kalita Artha Yukti. It will have Prasanna Katha Kalita Artha Yukti. It will be accompanied by a pleasant flair of storytelling. So taking into mind what Vyasa Maharshi had kept as the storyline, I will tell that in a more clear way. And Nannayya has stayed faithful to this through and through, which is why even later on, when the Bhandarkar Institute and many other such institutes were indeed looking at the Kumbakonam edition, the southern recension, the northern recension, and um, trying to figure out what the proper patha, what the proper structure of the Mahabharata is, and which verses are to be included, which are prakshipta, which were erroneously added, which were posthumously added, which were transliteration mistakes. In the process of them trying to do this, if they ever had a doubt um, in terms of what Vyasa Maharshi's intent was, it was indeed the fact that many a time they would refer back to the Mahabharata of Nannaya because it is one of the one of the oldest retellings of the Mahabharata, and also because it is the fact that Nannaya stayed that dedicated to the story that Vyasa Maharshi was presenting and to the heart of the story that Vyasa Maharshi was presenting. Then one more thing was added that Itarulu Akshara Ramyata Nadarimpa. The not just the storytelling, but the words used are also supposed to be captivating to the heart. So of course we know that a kavya, a poetic work, its beauty can be split twofold in terms of the shabda and the artha, in terms of the sound and the meaning. That is to say, the meaning that is conveyed is supposed to be beautiful, and the sounds that convey it are supposed to be equally beautiful. So it is not just that the subject material I'm conveying is going to be beautiful, but I am going to take pains, that is to say, I will take special effort in order to make this as a kavya that is beautiful to listen to as well. Whereas Vyasa Maharshi's Mahabharata being an itihasa, kind of just keeps going forward with the story, keep going forward with the teachings that are enshrined in the story. It does not pay much attention to beautification of sound. That is not at all, again, to say that Vyasa Maharshi did not pay attention to poetry in the Mahabharata. There are indeed numerous instances wherein Vyasa Maharshi has given gems of similes. For example, on the 14th day, when Arjuna is, he's in fact, he has entered the three vyuhas set up by Drona on that day. He is fighting the entire Kaurava army on foot because Sri Krishna Paramatma has to tend to the horses. So he alights from the chariot and is fighting the entire Kaurava army on foot, and he drives them all back. There, Vyasa Maharshi very beautifully says, "Lobhas sarva gunaniva." All the kings were repulsed by Arjuna, as all qualities, all good qualities, are repulsed by greed. So this is, in fact, of course, this is poetry of the highest level, reminiscent of poets such as Kalidasa. So, not to say that there is no poetry found in Mahabharata, but as we said, Mahabharata Vyasa Maharshi is a Shastra, Shastra Rupa Kavya Chhayanvayi. So, it is primarily a Shastra. Any poetic references are only, or any poetic styles are only fleeting and far between. So, however, Nannaya, however, has made an effort to ensure that this is, of course, a kavya, and therefore that there should be akshara ramyata. The words used should also be quite beautiful. And we see that even the Samskrita that Nannaya uses, see, although the original Mahabharata is also Samskrita, the Samskrita of Nannaya is indeed quite beautiful. We will see some examples of that going forward. Um, and then Nana Ruchira Artha Sukti Nidhi. This Mahabharata is going to become a reservoir of, because Nannaya himself is such, the Mahabharata will also be Nana Ruchiratha Sukti Nidhi. Nannaya Bhatto. This Nannaya Bhatto, who is a Nidhi, a repository of various suktis, well said sayings that are Nana Ruchira, that are variegated and both beautiful. So here we see that the main goal of Nannaya's retelling is to stay faithful to the goal of Vyasa Maharshi's Mahabharata while adding to it the qualities of a kavya. That is to say, the manner of storytelling, dramatic storytelling, as well as the aksharamyata, the words used and the manner of expression of the story. So, and we do see that Nannayya Arya has done justice there. In many places, we see that in cases where some shlokas of Vyasa Maharshi have been directly translated by Nannayya Arya, we do see that in some cases small changes will be made. Not that the Telugu Chandas was unforgiving or was so unforgiving that the translation could not be exactly made. But we see that wherever there are slight deviations from even the vocalization of certain concepts from the Vyasa Mahabharata, we see that it is because Nannaya is trying to grasp at Vyasa Maharshi's heart and present it in an even more open way. So there are many Upadeshas found in the Adi Parva. Therein, there is one shloka of Vyasa Maharshi. Satavapi kule jataha karmana chati durgatim prapnuvanti duratmanah kamajala pramohitaha. This is one upadesha that is done there. So satavapi kule jataha. Even those who are born in an illustrious lineage, they Ati Durgatim Prapnuvanti. They will sometimes find themselves in deep calamities due to karmana, due to their previous actions. They are Duratmanaha. These are not just anyone, but they are Duratmas, that is to say, wicked men born in illustrious lineages. They will find themselves in calamities because Kamajala Pramohitaha, because they have become deluded by their various desires. So here the point is that even though a wicked man may be born in a good lineage, if he becomes deluded by desire, he will find himself in calamity. So here, while translating this, Vyasa Maharshi, Nannayya does a very close translation here. It says, ఎట్టి విశిష్ట కులంబున పుట్టియు ఎట్టి విశిష్ట కులంబున పుట్టియు సదసద్వివేకములు కలిగియు మున్గట్టిన కర్మఫలంబులు నెట్టన భోగింపకుండ నేర్తురే మనుజుల్. So this is actually a very close translation, but not an exact translation. It is exactly what we said, wherein he takes Vyasa Maharshi's teaching to heart and presents it. So the teaching of Vyasa Maharshi seems to be limited only to wicked men. That is to say, wicked men, though they may be born in a good lineage, will find themselves in calamities if their mind is led astray by Kama. Here, the point is that when the mind is led astray by Kama due to previous karma, because karmana chati durgatim is also told in the Mula. So, due to karma, the mind will be led astray and people will find themselves in calamities. This situation is not exclusive to wicked men. As we see, this is exactly what happened in the case of Yudhishthira also. No one would characterize Yudhishthira as an evil man. His mind was just slightly led astray by the game of dice, and then he later found himself in calamities. So here, Nannayya Arya has not done an exact translation of Vyasa Maharshi, wherein he would have said that even wicked men born in a good lineage will find themselves in calamities due to their karma. But instead, he says, he says, Etti Vishishta Kulamana Puttiyo, they may have been born in Manujulu. He says this applies to all people, not just Duratmanaha, as Vyasa Maharshi had said. But here Nannayya is retelling the same niti, retelling the same moral in a more universal sense. This is the case across all humans. Etti Vishishta Kulamana Puttiyo, they may have been born in a very illustrious lineage. And Sadasadvivekamuలు కలిగియు, they may even have the discrimination between what is good and what is bad. This is a portion that is not talked about in the Mula. And however, even so, mun kattina karmaphalamulu bhogimpakunda nirture. Will they be able to escape the clutches of the karma that they have done in the past? So, although this is not exactly what Vyasa Maharshi said, it is still grasping at the heart of what Vyasa Maharshi said, which is that although you may be born into a good place or into a very illustrious family, uh, your previous karma is capable of pushing you into calamities. For wicked people, that will happen through the instrument of karma, that is to say, through their desires. But this falling into calamity, though being born in an illustrious family, is not exclusive to wicked men. This can happen to anyone, which is why keeping that moral in mind, taking parts of what Vyasa Maharshi said, Nannayya Arya, in fact, opened up the the expanse of what Vyasa Maharshi was discussing. And then we had also talked about the Akshara Ramyata, that the style of language that was used is very beautiful. So there are many places in the Mahabharata wherein we see that Vyasa Maharshi intended this to be both a Drishya Kavya and a Shravya Kavya. Shravya Kavya. So we see that there are places in the Mahabharata where Vyasa Maharshi not only uses poetic adornments, alankaras, but also does tell us what the scene is, who is present in the scene, what they are wearing, what they look like. These are all details that one would include only if one envisions that this is meant to be visualized and perhaps later enacted. So we do see many instances of this in the Mahabharata Vyasa Maharshi. One such instance is it comes in the Kumara Vidya Pradarshana, wherein after studying from Drona, the Kauravas and Pandavas are invited to perform and exhibit the skills that they have mastered, the skills of warfare that they have mastered under Drona, in front of all the Kuru elders. So here there is a description of Arjuna in the Mahabharata, and of course there is also a Padya in the Andhra Mahabharata by Nannayya. Here we see that the Nannayya Sanskrita there is also quite heavily Sanskritized. The Padya is quite heavily Sanskritized. However, the Telugu Sampradaya has given Sanskrit a particular beauty that I would argue that is not even there in perhaps in Sanskrit itself in some places for one simple reason. It is not a misplaced abhimana in a language, but it is simply that Telugu has not confined itself to keep Padanta yatis the way Sanskrita has. So a yati is a virama, as we know, it is where there has to be a pause in the line. So in Samskrita, there it is mandated that the second that at the end of each line the word must end. Words cannot be split between lines, and it is also a rule that the end of the word, that is to say, the vibhakti pratyaya has to come by the second line of the poem. So that is to say, even a word cannot stretch, a compound word cannot stretch across the second and third pada. The compound word must end by the end of the second pada. However, Telugu has not set upon itself any such limitations, and therefore it lends itself to more twisting, turning, new turns of Sanskrit phrase. There is one more particularity to Telugu, which is the addition of yati and prasa. So, yati, as we know, is there in Sanskrita as the mere caesura. That is to say, the split in a line wherein it is natural to take a pause. But Telugu has added a concept of yati maitri, wherein aksharas that have samana prayatna, that is to say, aksharas that are vocalized the same way or which are pronounced similarly are put into groups, and they are said to have maitri with each other, and that the first word and the first letter and the yatisthana have to uphold that maitri, wherein it has to be a letter that matches the first letter in that prayatna, both in terms of the hal, in terms of the consonant and the vowel. So this is one constraint that is not there in Samskrita that led Telugu poets and leads Telugu poets to this day to have a more varied uh, array of words that are used, such that the yati requirement can be fulfilled. Because the word that we may usually, the common word that we may wish to use, may not always fit the yati. In the same way, the prasa requirement also, wherein the second letter of each line is meant to keep the same consonant. This rule is also not there in Sanskrit, although it has been used as an alankara in many shlokas, but it is not there as a rule. Whereas in Telugu, when a vritta is being taken up, it is a rule that the second letter of each pada must be the same consonant, and therefore to uphold this also, there are many new words and many new turns of phrase that Telugu poets have coined. So for these reasons and other such reasons, the way that Telugu poets have used Sanskrit over the last 10 centuries is quite novel. It is quite novel. So for that reason, we see that although Nannaya's poem as well is heavily Sanskritized, it still bears a unique flair that is not the focus of Vyasa Maharshi. So when Vyasa Maharshi is describing Arjuna in the Rangamabhumi, because Arjuna's performance of his Astra Vidya in the Kumara Astra Vidya Pradarshana is of course a very astounding feat. He says Baddha Godhanguritranaha, so wearing gloves made of iguana skin, Purna Toda Sakarmukaha, with full quivers holding a bow, Kanchanam Kavacham Bibhrata, wearing a golden arrayed in golden armor, Pratyadarshita Phalgunaha. He Arjuna was seen, and here Vyasa Maharishi gives an upamana. Ekasyendrayudha ekasyen Ekasyendrayudha tadit sasandhyaiva toyadaha. So Indrayudha Sendrayudha tatit. So he looked like Toyadaha, like a cloud, Sandhi. So Sandhya eva Toyadaha. So he looked like a cloud in the evening, accompanied by lightning, because he was holding his bow. So here there is a long and a very nice poem that is written, that is talking about what exactly um, uh, what exactly Arjuna was wearing. So in there it is a Nilotpala Varna Kayudu. So in there's what one padya is there? Adharanīya Kayudu. Nilotpala. That padya does not spring to mind immediately, but there is definitely one padya there wherein Arjuna is described as uh, forgive me, that this particular padya is not coming to mind, but there is an exact charu chapa dirghoru bhujundu Bhaswara Bhaswara Tarotpala Charu Tanundu. In this way, there is one padya that comes there, wherein there is a lilting style, Pandava Madhyamundu. There is a lilting style in which that the the style of Nannayya goes. In the same way, in some places, there will be some places where Vyasa Maharshi describes the the happenings very quickly. For example, when Janamejaya is introduced in the Mahabharata, there is it is a Gadya Bhaga, it is a prose section, it is not a shloka, but it is simply said that Janamejaya Parikshitah Saha Bhratrabhi Kurukshetre Dirgham Satram Upaste. This is all that he writes. That Janamejaya Parikshitah, Janamejaya the son of Parikshit, Saha Bhratrabhi, accompanied with his brothers Kurukshetre, in Kurukshetra Dirgham Satram Upaste. He performed a long yaga. This is all that is written there. However, here, given that Janamejaya is the last surviving descendant of the Pandavas, and given that the entire narrative of the Sarpa Yaga is quite important, and given that you are introducing the main listener of the Mahabharata, Nannaya felt it appropriate that a larger padya should be dedicated to Janamejaya, and that more Visheshana should be given. And here too we see the Sanskrit heavy style of Nannaya. ప్రతిహత శత్రు విక్రముడు పాండవ వంశ వివర్ధనుండు సువ్రతుడు పరీక్షదాత్మజుడు సువ్రతుడు పరీక్షదాత్మజుడు అవధ్య విదూరుడు ఉదార కీర్తి నిర్మిత వివిధాధ్వరుండు జనమేజయుడన్ జనపాలుడు ఉత్తమ స్తుతమతి దీర్ఘసత్రం అజితుండు నరించి శుభాభికాంక్షి అయి. So in this way we see so many visheshanas, so many descriptors that Pratihata Shatru Vikramudu, he has conquered the valor of his opponents. Pandava Vamsha Vivardhanundu, he is the scion of the race of the Pandavas. Suvratudu, he is quite dedicated. So he is referred to as Pandava Vamsha Vivardhanundu, the scion of the race of the Pandavas. Suvratudu, he is bound to Dharma. Parikshadatmajudu, the son of Parikshit. Avadya Vidurudu, he is free from sin. Udara Kirti, he has wide-spreading fame. Nirmita Vividhadvarundu, he is fond of performing many yagas. This yaga, this Dirgha Satra is not the first yaga that he is doing, but he has done many such before. So in this way, we see that there is a much longer description given to the introduction of Janamejaya. In the same way, we also see that in some cases, what Vyasa Maharshi has said does not make exact sense when translated. So in such cases, the translator does have to take more pains. For example, we have the Panchandra Upakhyanā, wherein we see that Indra comes upon one lady crying in a sarovara, in a lake. Each teardrop of hers falls in the lake and becomes a Padma. He asks her what she is doing. She takes him to a cave wherein Shiva and Parvati are seated outside. And Indra is pushed into a cave wherein he sees four other Indras, exactly like him. This Indra, along with the other four Indras, become the five Pandavas later on. So in this, when Indra sees the the other four Indras in the cave that are identical to him, uh, there Vyasa Maharshi says, Satana Bhiprekshi Babhuva Dukkhitaha. Having seen those other four Indras identical to him, Babhuva Dukkhitaha. Indra became very saddened. So this does not exactly make sense. Indra should be surprised, taken aback, perplexed, but saddened does not exactly make sense. So, which is why very neatly Nannayya has translated as Vismitudayyanu. It is neatly done as he became surprised, he became taken aback. So in this way, we see that Nannayya has done this. Before I take leave in some 5-10 minutes, we shall also just look at one instance from Tikkana's part as well to see how he has followed Vyasa Maharshi. Tikkana is called Ubhaya Kavimitra because he he uses equal smatterings of pure Telugu, unadulterated by Sanskrita, as well as strong Sanskrita usage as well. So he is the proverbial friend to those who delight in pure Telugu poetry and pure Sanskrit poetry, and in a mix of both. So he, while writing the Mahabharata, we can say that perhaps the Virata Parva is the crest jewel of the portion that he has written. Indeed, the Virata Parva is in general also what we consider to be in Natakas as the turning point of the Mahabharata. Just as the Sundarakanda and Ramayana is where the story takes a turn. Until then, the Karuna Rasa is suddenly infused with Veera Rasa, and we see that things start to turn the way of the Nayaka. That is to say, until then, Rama was sent to the forest, his wife was kidnapped. The second that Sundarakanda comes into play, once Hanuman's exploits begin, then immediately fortunes turn in the favor of the Nayaka. In the same way, in the Mahabharata also, the Pandavas were born. The Kauravas have been trying to kill them since they were both children. They are sent to the forest. But it is in the Virata Parva, during their time of incognito, that their fortunes turn for the better because they finish their incognito period of exile. Then Arjuna indeed single-handedly conquers the entire army of the Kauravas, and they attain an alliance with Virata Raja, and they are now once again in a situation to begin garnering political support for the Kurukshetra Yuddha to come. So, in such a Virata Parva, Tikkana has aptly shown his poetic prowess. So, there are some places wherein, just for the sake of poetics, some things have been brought out. For example, Kichaka lusts after Draupadi. This is there in the Mula as well. But the Viraha, that is to say, the infatuation and the longing that Kichaka felt for Draupadi has been described in much greater detail in the Mahabharata of Tikkana rather than in the Mahabharata of Vyasa, simply because the Andhra Mahabharata is a kavya and the Vilaha, Vilapa trope is a common one in Andhra kavyas. In the same way, the one that we'll be looking at right now is the entry of Uttara. Uttara, as we know, is the daughter of Virata Raja, the king of the Matsya Desha, and she is entrusted to Arjuna, who is in the disguise of Brahannala, for to be instructed in matters of dance. So in the Vyasa Mahabharata, this is not really discussed in great detail. It just says that the king called Uttara and she came, and then he entrusted her to Brahannala. He checked to make sure that Brahannala is indeed a eunuch as he is claiming to be, and then having seen it, he placed Brahannala in the Antapura, in the inner apartments of the palace, to teach Uttara and her sakhis, her friends, dance. So there is no great importance ascribed to Uttara. However, in the Mahabharata of Tikkana, that is in the Andhra Mahabharata, Tikkana does in fact devote 3 or 4 padyas to describe the entry of Uttara. So a lot of importance is given to Uttara, not only because the entrance of a stree is a good object for poetry, but also because, keeping in mind that it is through Uttara that the Vamsha of the Pandavas, that the lineage of the Pandavas is going to continue. Because although Draupadi had 5 sons, although Subhadra had although Draupadi had 5 sons, although Hidimba had Ghatotkacha, although Arjuna had Iravat through Chitrangada and Ulupi, Babhravahana. Although all of these other lineages of the Pandavas were there, they were all wiped out by the Mahabharata war. The only remaining successor of the Pandavas was the child of Abhimanyu in the womb of Uttara, because Abhimanyu too was killed during the Mahabharata war. So because it is Uttara that will be later on responsible for the Pandava Vamsha to endure, her entry is brought out. There too, although Vyasa Maharshi does not discuss uh, the nature of the Guru Shishya Sambandha between Burhanala and Uttara, There, Tikkana, of course, being the Vaidika that he was and being conversant with the Sampradayas of Sanatana Dharma, found it apt that there should be a specific section describing how Virata Raja would have handed over Uttara to Brahmana. Both because Uttara is important, Arjuna, of course, is arguably the hero amongst the Pandavas. There are three schools of thought that in the Mahabharata, the Nayaka is Shri Krishna, the Nayaka is Yudhishthira, and that the Nayaka is Arjuna. So, Arjuna, of course, having such prominence, it is Uttara being handed over to Arjuna. So, that aside, though, the nature of a student being placed in the care of a teacher, this was very nicely brought out by Tikkana, although it was not at all touched in the Mula. So all that is there in the Mula is there. Virata Raja tells Brahannala, Dadami te tam hi varam Brahannale, Tutam hime nartaya yashta tadrishi. Hey Brahannale, O Brahannala, I am giving you what you have asked for, because he has asked to be part of the entourage. He says, Nartaya, Sutam, me Sutam Nartaya. You teach my daughter to dance. Yashta tadrishi. You also teach people, her cohort as well, the children of her age, you teach them also how to dance. And Tato Virata Swayam Ahvayat Sutam Lalithadithya Sumadhya Sundarim. So then Virata called his daughter Uvacha Chainam Muditena Chetasa. So then he told his daughter Brahannala Namasaki Bhavatriyam. This will be Brahannala, your Sakhi. And then he just tells that Prakam Bhakshya Bharanambara Shubha. Something you can let her Antafpura Sarvajanesh Vavarita, let Brahannala roam in the Antafpura unchecked. She has full rights to go wherever they would wish to go. She can eat whatever she wants. She can wear whatever she wants. Give her all the ornaments that she wants. This is, and then that is all is talked about there. However, in the Mahabharata of Tikkana, though, there is a much longer description that is given. Karpura Sahitambagu Tambulambu Vetti, Chitrambagu Chinambarambulichi, Manamayambagu Abharanambula Sangi Sambhavinchi. This is the Vachana that is written there. So it is written that Virata Maharaja has given Tambula. So as we know, this is a Vaidika Sampradaya, wherein when a Ritvik is being when Ritvik Varana happens, when a Ritvik is being chosen for a yajna, or when anyone is being enjoined in a particular role in a Vaidika performance, it is customary to give Tambula to them. Which is, of course, in Telugu there is also the phrase Tambulalu Puchukovadam, which not only means to become engaged, but it also means that you have committed yourself to an activity. So that is being told. It is also told that Virata Raja has given Chitrabagu Chinambaramburichi. He has given um, Brahannala silk clothes, Manimayambagun Abharanambulichi. He has given him Abharanas, and then he describes the nature of his daughter. Nechulalathoda nintiyu machika tana icchanada maragina radiyai vicchalavadi nintaku mun ichchedeya mela ichchedeya melagu shiksha neradu shiksha erugadu summi. So he tells Brahannala that Ichedia, this three, my daughter, Nechulalathoda, with her friends, Entayu Machiga Tana Ichana Ada. She has Ada Maraginadi. She is accustomed to playing with her friends. She does not know how to be diligently studying something. Shiksha Yerugado, because here Uttara is a very young girl. She is pubescent or prepubescent. She is just entering the full blossoms of youth. So she is of that age where until then she has been playing, but it is now time that she take up something seriously to study. So he is telling Brahannala that until now, Uttara has been only playing, she does not know how to study. Then he describes what the nature of that study should be. Balakeli meeda bharamu prabambuna viduva kalalayandu vedku sunipi nayamatoda nartanambula shikshimpu nelata kedu gadaya neevugave. So Balakeli meeda bharamu kramambuna viduva, such that she stops becoming interested in the plays of children, in the pastimes of children, and kalalayandu vedka sunipi. You should give her an interest in the arts. So the style of teaching, O Brahmana, that you should undertake is such that you should make her so interested in the science of dance that her desire to engage in the fruitless pastimes of children should naturally go down. And then, of course, we see again, once again, that the importance of a teacher is told that Nelataku Edugada Nivegade. That Edugada in Telugu is a very nice native usage. It refers to a complete protection, something that is always there to protect, that protects in every which way. So such a thing is called an Yedugada. So then he calls his daughter, he puts the daughter's hand in Brahannala's hand, and he tells her, Arasi Gauravimpumi, the Chandana Kusumadulan Nadipi, Tappaka Arasi Gauravimpumi. He tells her always pay homage to your Guru, and then he tells her the importance of a Guru. Yella Chuttamulano, Talliyo, Todono, Chelia, Parijanambo, Chelua Niku Guruva. Inka nokka koratayu ledindu cheri bratuku buddhi gauravamuna. So he tells Uttara the importance of having a teacher that teaches you something. Yella chuttamulanu, all relatives, talli your mother, todu your constant companion, chiliyu, your friend, parijanambu, your servants. All of these roles until now have been fulfilled by different people, but now all of these are for you only. Neeku guruva. So guruvu is a guru. Guruva is what is called avadharana in Sanskrit. Only your guru. So your guru alone is of the nature of all of your relatives, your mother, your companions, your friends, your well-wishers. All of this is your guru alone. So Niku innondu korata indu ledu. Korataye ledu. There is nothing lacking now that you have a proper guru to teach you. And in this way, then interestingly, actually here, uh, in the Mula, Vyasa Maharshi had said, Dadau, he gave Uttara to Brihannala such that Brihannala can teach. Here, though, he says, Ondurulaku nappaginchi. In the Vachana, after this, there is one Vachana, wherein Tikkana says, Ondurulaku nappaginchi. That he has entrusted Brihannala and Uttara to each other. So, this is one very interesting usage wherein it is not just that Uttara has been placed in the care of Brihannala, but Brihannala, of course, being a foreigner who has come from outside to stay there and teach, Uttara is also instructed to take care of her teacher. So in this way, this entire situation is not at all there in the Vyasa Mahabharata. It is just told that Virata called Uttara. He told her that you are now going to be studying under this person, and you make sure that he has everything that he wants, or that he just tells her that he has all rights to move around freely in the Antapura. However, here Tikkana has taken the opportunity to present a very important tenet of Sanatana Dharma, which is that the teacher is everything to the student, and that the teacher has a very particular responsibility to the student. The responsibilities of a teacher to the student have also been outlined, and in this way, many such many such other aspects have also been brought out in the Andhra Mahabharata that were not verbalized in the Vyasa Mahabharata, but which do a very nice job of expressing the heart of Vyasa, which is no different than the heart of Sanatana Dharma, which is why we see even, in fact, that Nannayya, of course, laid out the plan, but then Tikkana has given his portion of the Kavya as Ankita to Harihara Murti. The form of Harihara is, of course, very renowned in the Puranas. We find it in the Padma Purana, in the Vayu Purana. There are many Puranas wherein the Harihara Murti is talked about, wherein Ishvara, half the body is Shiva, half the body is that of Vishnu. So that was Tikkana's Ishtadevata, that was his deity of choice, especially in a time wherein Andhra was torn between the Veera Vaishnava, which came from Tamil Nadu, and the Veera Shaiva, which had entered from Karnataka. So the sect of Basava had entered from Karnataka. Then the Veera Vaishnavas, of course, the Shiva Vaishnavas had coming from Tamil Nadu, and both of them were vying for supremacy in Andhra, and this caused lots of sectarian conflict. So both as the epitome of Advaita, which Vyasa Maharshi has taught so nicely in the Mahabharata, Tikkana has given his Mahabharata to Harihara Murti. So we see that, of course, in the Vyasa Mahabharata too, all changes or all every place wherein the storyline takes a turn is due to either Shiva or Vishnu. So, for example, these five Indras being told to be born as the Pandavas is the doing of Shiva. Arjuna having the Pashupata Astra is the doing of Shiva. Arjuna, in fact, conquering the army on the 14th day is the doing of Shiva. So, in this way, Shiva as Hanuman on the flagstaff of Arjuna and gracing Bhima. These are all, there are many places in the Mahabharata. As in fact, there is one more place wherein it is Shiva who enters Ashwathama on the night of the 18th day, and there through Ashwathama, he gets rid of the remainder of the Pandava army as well. So, in this way, just as Sri Krishna Paramatma, Vishnu, Mahavishnu as Sri Krishna has helped the Pandavas, in the same way that Shiva also has played an equally important role in the Mahabharata of guiding the Pandavas to safety and in protecting Dharma. So this nature of that it is one Paramatma who in the form of Shri Krishna and Shiva has taken Dharma forward. Tikkana has given his part of the Mahabharata as Ankita to Harihara Murti. In the same way, Errana, although we have not discussed him much, we can stay assured that he has followed in the footsteps of his predecessors, has given us illustrious poetry, and not just finishing the Aranya Parva, wherein he alone finished the Yaksha Prashna and all such important parts, but he also wrote the Harivamsha. Yara Pragada has also written the Harivamsha. So as we know, the Harivamsha is a Khila Parva of the Mahabharata. It is an appendix to the Mahabharata. In fact, in the Mahabharata too, it is mentioned that the Harivamsha should be read after the conclusion of the Mahabharata. So Yara Pragada has also written the um, Harivamsha as well in Telugu as an independent work as well. So we see that the Kavitraya of the Andhra Sampradaya of Andhra Sahitya of the Telugu literature have created an independent work. The Andhra Mahabharata, to reiterate, is not a translation, therefore, but it is a transcreation. It is seeing what Vyasa Maharshi intended to communicate, seeing the storyline that Vyasa Maharshi has propounded, staying true to that storyline, staying true to those teachings, but keeping a very distinct Telugu flavor in the retelling of the story, and emphasizing some parts where it is emphasis needed, uh, shortening some portions wherein perhaps punarukti or retelling is not needed. All of this was done by the Kavitraya, which is why amongst all the regional retellings of the Mahabharata, the Andhra Mahabharata enjoys special prominence as one of the most, if not the most faithful retelling of the Mahabharata of Vyasa Maharshi. So, paying homage to all of those poets, paying my namaskaras to Vyasa Maharshi, I thank Indica for this opportunity to speak about the Andhra Mahabharata and its relation to Vyasa Maharshi. And I look forward to many such opportunities to discuss the intricacies of how Andhra Sahitya, Telugu literature, has indeed been the brainchild and a worthy successor to the traditions of Sanskrit literature as well. Thank
Namaste. Namaste. Thank
you.
you very much. That was a very erudite and elaborate and intricate presentation. Uh, Let me see if there are any questions. There don't seem to be any questions for discussion. So thank you very much, Lalithadithya garu, for taking out your time in your busy schedule at Shringeri and having covered in such great detail with so many examples of how the Kavitraya Bharatam, you were able to cover examples from all the three members of the Kavitrayam. And you showed how where they were creative but still adherent to Vyasa's intention. That was really very useful for all the audience. Thank you very much.